I'm your host, Primo John. I had a great time. I want to welcome everybody to another show. If you never like, subscribe, or follow our channel before I asked you, did you do so? Today on the show, we're going to talk about the first date and the real cost. On Business Pro Tip Wednesday, we like to give tips to guys that help them get complimented so they know exactly what they need. I have an audio that I'm going to play. I had recorded it. I was having a conversation on Zoom with two different people that's in the media like myself. And as we had the conversation, it was very interesting. And part of that conversation is about the first date. What are the expectations? What can we expect? If there are any expectations, what are they? Do we have to? What the first date should look like? And how does that financially affect you? Because you know what ends up happening a lot of times when you get into work or you're doing any type of business, you meet somebody along that path, whether you was at the job where you met them at, or you met them out at lunch break, or you met them in a whole different environment. Maybe you were referred by a friend. How do you deal with that, though? How do you deal with the fact of the matter? You met this person, you have previous other things you need to take care of, and you get involved with them. Well, I have a soundbite from a Zoom call that I was on that I stripped the audio off, and I'm just going to play it. And this is Cathy and John going back and forth on the Zoom call regarding this whole topic. We were sitting down going over what we need to talk about the show. And in the process this afternoon, we got carried away. And then if we got carried away, this is what the conversation sounded like. So here's Cathy, and we'll put Cathy up first. Let me give you a little background. We're talking about Cathy's experience with females, and John's getting frustrated because the whole background of what this audio I'm about to play, and they sound bites, they're going to be sound bites. Well, John's view is this: women want providers, but if they want providers, they don't want nobody to be a leader. So they want somebody who provide, but they want the guy not to lead them, which I thought was when we were having this conversation, we were just talking. That's John's experience from his dialogue with his men friends. On the vice versa, Cathy's talking about the lunch breaks that she had over the holidays and over last year. And in that conversation which she was having, how do people view the situation as far as what women expect on the first date? So I'm gonna play these sound bites. There's 4 in total. It's gonna be Cathy and them. Then I'm gonna give you my opinion. And then we're gonna end for today. I'm gonna give you 3 things you need to do as a guy so this doesn't happen to you. But I'm gonna play these sound bites though. Hopefully you guys can hear them. I actually recorded them on Zoom. So let's play Cathy first. This is Cathy talking after she brings up the conversation about her and her associates, what they believe.
Unspoken expectation that men are obliged to shoulder the financial responsibilities of the inaugural first date. This perception often stems from ingrained societal norms and traditional gender roles, perpetuating the notion that men should play the role of provider. However, it is crucial to recognize that such assumptions can contribute to imbalanced power dynamics and reinforce outdated stereotypes.
Okay, now that's Cathy. I cut that now. I took this off of Zoom and I took the audio off of Zoom. And then I cut it. Okay, so that's a soundbite, and she was talking from a standpoint, but we're in media, so she's gonna sound like she's okay. Now, at the same time, I understood what she's saying. There's a social norm, so there's an aspect that women expect men to be a provider. Now, you got to take consideration. If you're a male, this is Wednesdays for you. You're thinking about you don't know this female, but you meet her. But the first date. Here's John's reply though. So here's gonna be John's reply.
Cathy, it's important to challenge preconceived notions and encourage a shift toward more progressive attitudes. Primo, I strongly disagree with Cathy. If a woman believes that a man is a provider, then why are they testing us to almost make us feel like we are not worthy to be with them? If you see me as a provider, then what's up? With all the shenanigans and head games while we are openly communicating with each other. We are supposed to be pursuing a relationship, I thought.
Now, this got interesting because there's a lot of people on the Zoom call this afternoon, and in the process of being on the Zoom call, one of the things was that they were saying that there is a lot of manipulation going into the first date. Now, the manipulation is a direct attack on a man's pocket. It doesn't have anything to do with how he's going to end up 6 months from now, a year from now, if she doesn't want to be with him anymore. The reality is he's taking her on a date. It's not being communicated. So I know what Cathy said. What she said wasn't necessarily untrue. It is like a preceding norm. Everyone knows that, old days go back. And I'm not going to say it's a necessarily wrong thing, but there is a concept to be understood. Now, this is Cathy reply to him, though. So here's Cathy reply.
John, you misunderstood me. What I said was, scrutinizing societal norms, women may perceive an underlying expectation that men should bear the financial burden of dating or pursuing us. This is what my single girlfriends and I have discussed many times over lunch. I don't think they are necessarily wrong for having this belief, yet I do think they should be upfront with the guy that is interested in them.
Okay. That's a point. This is John's reply, and I just cut these 4 little sound bites, and I'm going to more because we can go back and forth. It was very interesting. Let me just tell you that, because we get a different perspective, especially from when you got different coaches that you having this conversation with.
Cathy, I understand what you meant. My biggest problem is with all the women that want a provider financially, but don't want a man who is the leader of the home anymore. If If a woman wants a man who can provide, then follow without all the complaining. I have so many friends that they should just dump their girls and move on because both of us know they are underdeveloped as women. Anyways.
Now, I cut that soundbite because John, listen, let me just be very clear. That's what makes dating almost dangerous because he makes a point. I mean, let me just be very clear. He makes a point. You're trying to pursue somebody financially that you want to take care of for the rest of your life. Now, John makes a point and basically states that there are a lot of undeveloped women, which means that when you're going into the process of pursuing somebody to be your wife, there's some undevelopment. And instead of coming together as one, we was on a Zoom call, it was 13 people. Instead of coming together as one, we kept seeing almost like they kind of sided it, even though you got different windows in the Zoom. You have a situation where a person is sitting there and we all have our own preconceived. I'm married. So for me, I understand. I wouldn't want to be trying to date nobody in this type of situation anyway. I already have obligations. As you can see, I have a home. And because I have that home, if I'm going to pursue somebody, I can't go against some of the decisions I already made to provide for my own lifestyle. Okay. That being said, there is a lot of undevelopment. And part of the dating process is actually communicating where that undevelopment lies at. Does it lie in your career path? Does it lie in the fact that you don't know how to interact with a person? So here's 3 things you need to know at all given times. First thing is this. It's normal to know that when you're first dating somebody, it's like a resume and the people don't actually tell you the truth up front. They want to give you their best foot forward. They want to even manipulate you to believe that I have everything you need, but you got to prove to me that you're worthy. So this is that provider aspect that they want us to, pay for the first date. They want you to, did I pay for the first date with my significant other? The answer is yes, I did. Before we were married, I paid for the first date. After, for majority of the time, very few, I'd say very few. There's sometimes she actually paid as well. But most of the time, I actually covered all the costs that was associated with the relationship from the beginning. Now, the reason that's significant, because if you are currently right now a person who's in whether you're working or you're in a leadership role, and you find yourself in a situation where I am pursuing a young lady, but the decision that I made, it's going to conflict with it, this can actually be catastrophic. So the first thing you need to make sure is that your previous goals, and this is a thing when you're dating, you actually drop all your goals that you have set and actually compromise. I'm just going to say this, don't compromise. Whatever you was pursuing before you date her, she needs to know what that is so she can either play a role in it or she can walk away from it. You shouldn't be afraid to do that. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2, economically, at this particular time, there should probably be, you should have only 10% of something you spend money on, 90% to really just communicate. Doesn't matter if you go to the local coffee shop, you take a walk in the park, 90% of money should not even be the option the first couple of times that you guys communicate and talk. It shouldn't even be something that you're willing to pursue, because at the end of the day, remember, the word provider means the person is staying with you. I mean, I have children. I expect them to stay until they get to the age of reason and they move out. But if that is the goal of dating and the person is looking for the provider, but they're actually not looking for you to provide when they're going, just think for a second. You can either spend $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $20,000 on somebody over a couple of years and they're no longer there. What did you provide for? You provided everything that you built, everything that you developed, all your communication skills were subjected to this individual who truthfully never really had an instant to stay. She was looking for the financial support, but not looking for the leadership with a commitment to that financial support. So you need to be cognizant of that. So don't change. Here's a third thing. If you can't build wealth together, and wealth is not always about money. I know when we use the word wealth, people say, oh, it's about money. No, wealth is not always about money. Wealth is about experiences where you both get to mature and develop. Because remember, part of dating is really dealing with undevelopment, part of undevelopment of each other as individuals, and then complementing one another. So as a male, you should automatically be saying to yourself, and just to be very clear, in today's society, it's a social norm that you go out, you go dance, you do all this fun stuff. All of this fun stuff that actually is a nominal cost, that doesn't allow you to build wealth, which means assets. It doesn't allow you to actually make the key decision that you can do that 2 years down the road as a couple, you're better financial off, because what you're doing at that particular point is playing the dating game where it's hide and seek information. So it's a lot of things that's being withheld, and those things are being withheld make you manipulate by paying cash to hide those things, especially if you're a guy. You're just going to use cash to hide the fact that, hey, I'm horrible on being home by 5 o'clock. When I go out with my fellas, I'm gonna come back in the house 2 o'clock in the morning. If you decide that you want to pursue and be my wife, or if you decide to be with me, I'm coming out. Those things are not really talked about. So if you remember what I put at first, there was a dialogue between Cathy and John on the Zoom call, and that call itself, you had two different point of views. It's expected that a guy's going to be a provider, and that's the reason he's expected to pay on the first date. But also he should be a leader, which means that if I'm providing, I'm being a leader. See, that's going into a role of a built relationship, and I don't think people realize that. My wife expects me to be a provider because I'm her husband. If you're expecting that at the dating scene, then we got some issues up front, because you're saying, well, I don't know if he's really the guy for me. Now, if you're a male, let me just be right up with you. If you're pursuing a woman and you manipulating yourself in order to prove that you're being with her, she's not looking for a provider. She's looking for a circus clown. Same thing a guy would be looking for if he putting a woman through that stupidity. Like, I don't know if you're really the chick for me. Any of those idioms that reflects the fact that you don't call about her name, it's unnecessary. So I'm trying to tell you, on Business Pro Tip Wednesday, the whole thing is to make sure the 3 points are very clear. And that's one is, try everything you possibly can not to deviate off your path that you was building for wealth, especially if you're over the age of 30. I get a lot of these young men, they meet a young lady and she's attractive. They're fresh out of high school. So the aspect of them having that relationship with their father saying, son, listen, I know you like her, but at the cost of liking her, you need to be focused on your college. You need to be focused on finishing your semester. That's not the first thing on their mind. It's hot excitement of joy. Oh, this girl is hot. I just met her. Don't you got to worry about your 3.5 GPA? But let's assume you're not in college. You're already out of college. The key to it is, how's this young lady right now going to help me build $30,000 in my broker's account? How's this young lady right now going to help me generate $500,000? And if the answer is you can't answer any of those questions, that means she's going to help you spend that kind of money. Spend it in a way that you'll never pay to put it over here. And if that's going to be the case, you need to really refocus and understand that on every Wednesday when we're talking about it, we're being real conversation. This is the first time I've ever done this. First time I ever took some sound bites from Zoom, and there was a lot of stuff going on. But at the same time, we're all in media, and we had this call at, in the middle of the day. Normally, I don't jump on those calls, but the fact of the matter, because it was an interesting topic and I was already going to have a conversation, I just wasn't going to have it this week, but it made it easy to have this week, because I thought the conversation that was presented was this. The statistics prove this. I don't know if you guys know this, but here's the statistics. And forget about the 9 out of 10. 75% of the money that a person will spend on their first date will be so misappropriated that the person doesn't stay 90 days later. See, that's the problem with dating. If you know that if you're going to go out, financially, if you're older, for my example, if you're over the age of 30, you need to understand that first date, that person may not be here 90 days, because the only way they're going to be here 90 days is if there is already a conversation about long-term that's being presented before you even go out with them. That's the reason I said that how is that catastrophic? Because if you spend $200 and you only go out with this girl one time, if you go out the second time, you spend another, that's $400. You go spend out again, you spend $600. By the time you spend $1,000 and she's not here 90 days from now, that was a bad financial decision. One, you were never going to be able to provide for her because she was never going to give you the opportunity to provide for her. You just spent $1,000. If you were married to this woman, let's be honest, you about to spend $1,000 when you're going to see her tomorrow morning? No, you ain't going to spend no $1,000 if you're going to see her tomorrow, because it's going to be something that's planned. It's not going to be something that's just like, oh, I'm going to pick you up. We're going to go below $1,000, because the first thing your wife going to say is, do we really got to spend that? Especially if she's experienced. If she's not experienced, she's like, oh, we don't have to spend that kind of money. We can go. She'll actually find out a way how to cut that cost and put that money in her pocket before she take $1,000 to say, oh, that's so great. You see the young men, they go get these gigantic flowers. They're so big you can't even get them in the car, and they take them to their job. That's all the stuff you're doing when you're dating. It's nothing wrong if you're married and do that to your wife. But I can assure you, if you start doing that behavior, she's going to find another way that you can express her love. And it's not going to be the large bouquet that she in the hallway can't get together. She gets stuck in the hallway. So just wanted to bring that out to you guys today. Kind of have that conversation, letting you know, to make you really think about it. Step back as a guy and ask yourself this question. Do I need to put myself in a situation where financially I'm about to spend this money on the first date, even the second date, or in the first 90 days, and she's not going to be here 6 months from now? Because really what she's doing is looking at an opportunity, because one, you're pursuing that person if you are, but in the process of pursuing them, you're pursuing them with the concept and the idea that the goal is for me to pursue them to be a provider and a leader, and she lives in my house. And the truth of the matter is, if she lives in my house, those costs actually don't really go down, they go up. But the way that you move that money is different. It wouldn't be like you spend it on a date. You're doing it for the house. You're doing it for the car payments. If you're taking over the car payments, you're doing that to, for the best for her future and the lineage that she's going to produce and how you guys are going to raise your wealth together. That should be the focus. That should be the goal. But in the pursuit of dating, really what people are doing is, hey, I'll take you. You can go out with me. And if you're if you're 21 or 25, you should be considering this. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl. You should consider the fact that the guy worked all week, and in the process of him working all week, he's taking you on a date, and I really don't like him. This is another thing I think that is catastrophic for a dude. If the girl really don't like you, you can best believe all the money you're spending is just so that she's waiting for the guy she likes. That's catastrophic, guys. I'm not trying to be funny. If the goal is to get her to be your wife, and she's telling you, well, I like you, but I don't know if you're the right one for me, and maybe you got to prove it. I'm not going to say anything other than say this, man. Stop what you're doing right now. There are so many women outside the U.S. that you see it. You go on YouTube, you just key it on in if you never keyed it on in before. They're looking for a guy who is willing to say, I'm willing to be a provider. These women saying, you got to prove to me. These women say, you ain't got to prove. What you want to provide? Let me just let you do it. No argument. Now, the only difference you're going to have is maybe in some cultural differences, but the reality is it's not going to be catastrophic. Nobody, this is 2024 now. I'm just put it out there. In 2024, you or anyone else, I'm not single, I'm married. But in the position, if I was single, there is no way financially I can be dating more than one girl. First of all, to be honest with you, the economy that we're in, where dollars are being ate up because it costs more to buy something right now, and to go out and be spending that kind of money where everything is inflated. You're not trying to take a girl on a discount date, but the reality is you're not trying to spend the hard-earned dollars that you work for. You making $50 an hour, you're spending $200. That's 4 hours of a job that you was at, that you happy to give this up for somebody who definitely ain't happy to say that you're gonna be taken care of. And if you're a male and you're like, well, it's okay. Listen, let me just say this. We all want to be in a relationship with somebody that we can grow old together, we can build wealth together, and we can have successes. And we're just not doing consumer spending. Because if a woman, all she can do with you is consumer spend, that ain't your wife, man. That is a Jezebel. And if you don't know who Jezebel is, that's a Delilah. If you know who Delilah is, let me give you a better one. This is a person who's been put into your life to take your cash away to stop you from getting to your goals. Period. Now, you may not agree with that, but let me just ask you this question. If you're married, I'm not going to have this conversation, but if you're single, I'm going to say this. If you're single, think about the last 5 girls you dated and however long you dated and how much money you think you spent dating her, and she not here now. Let me just be very clear. You provided. You took her out. And because of maybe a flaw in your character, she didn't see the other, all she saw was the flaw in your character. Your leadership part, she don't even take attention to because she was like, I ain't even having that. But let me just explain to you. As a provider, what comes with that is you developing as you provide. And if she's saying, no, you can't provide for what I want, and what you want is consumer spending, man, that's the biggest blessing that you ever had on Business Pro Tip Wednesday for men. This is the biggest blessing. She's gone. Don't you dare pick up that phone. Don't you dare call her back in Texas telling you thinking. Don't do a TD Jakes where you sending messages at 2 o'clock in the morning talking about, I'm thinking of you. You better not think of her at all, because all she is to you is another tax on your paycheck. Next Wednesday, we're going to get into another conversation on Business Pro Tip for Men. And on Friday, we're back to our regular show. We're talking about finances, what you need to do for wealth, what you need to grow. And I definitely will see you on Friday. Have a great week.